What's up, guys? This is Jag with the JB Podcast. So, after the All Star game, or before the All Star game, excuse me, I made a video about All Star snubs. And I haven't made a video since then for a few reasons. One is because I've just had school stuff. I'm in college, so the homework was building up. But then also, the trade deadline, I thought it was going to get crazy, and I was going to make a recap video after, because I knew you guys didn't want to see a million and one speculation videos until it really happened. But the trade deadline really wasn't that crazy, except for the DeMarcus Cousins deal, and that's not even working out very well. So I'm going to do a video today about what makes a super team and what just makes a deep team. And I'm going to list the teams in the playoff race right now, the top 8 seeds in both conference, and say which team is deep, if it's a super team or not, and if they're just a regular playoff team. So let's get in the video. So starting at the 8 seeds for the 8 seed for the West. We have Denver in there, but they're only a half game up on Portland, I believe. So they're probably going to drop out. They actually are a fairly deep team at certain positions. I mean, they have Gallinari, um, Chandler, which is surprising that they didn't get traded because they've been on the trade block for like 3 years. But so they're pretty deep in that type of position. The wing can play shooting guard role. And then obviously Jamal Murray. He's the rookie class isn't that great this year, but he looks like he could be a potential quality starter in this league. We got Emmanuel Mudiay, who hasn't been doing that hot this year. But then their really star potential player is Jokic. Okay, so are they even that deep of a team? I mean, they're borderline all star, so I wouldn't go there. I wouldn't say they're that deep. I'd say they might make the playoffs, might not. Portland, I would say, probably got the better end of that trade because, for the most part, Mason Plumlee is better than Nurkic that they gave away in that trade, but not by much. Okay, because he's going to demand a ton of money. Portland didn't want to pay that. So they got Nurkic, who's actually been playing very well for them, 16 points, around 8, 9 rebounds, and almost 5 assists, which is really nice. And he's just getting opportunity now with, so he doesn't have to play behind Jokic, okay? And they also have CJ McCollum, who's borderline All Star, and Damian Lillard, who somehow keeps getting stuff from the All Star team. So if they make the playoffs, they'll be a deeper team than the Nuggets are right now. Okay, let's go to the 8 seed in the East. And right now, that's Detroit. Okay, they just beat Cleveland last night. And Cleveland's another story. I'll get into them when I get to the 1 seed. But Detroit isn't that deep of a team either. They're borderline playoffs again. They probably should be better than they are right now because last year they looked like they had something bright. I mean, they have Caldwell Pope, who's a great defender, 3-and-D guy. Reggie Jackson, who's actually tapered off a little bit this year, but he was maybe borderline all-star last year. He can probably get back to that maybe in the playoffs. And then Drummond, who probably is an all-star snub, but his team it wasn't doing that hot, so he didn't get that the all-star nod. And borderline right now is Miami. They might take over that 8 seed, which will actually kind of annoy me because LeBron and D Wade have never faced off against each other in the playoffs. And if the year Dwayne Wade left and they make the 8 seed and face the Cavs, that would kind of suck, but they're actually playing really well right now. They actually are a pretty deep team. Their bench is solid, better than you would think from a team that was 11-30, but now they're only about a game and a half out of the playoffs right now. So, and they just beat the Cavs 2 in a row. One, LeBron wasn't playing and Kyrie wasn't playing, but the other, LeBron and Kyrie was playing. And this year, oddly enough, efficient field goal wise, in the last, I believe 1 minute or in clutch time in the last 5 seconds. No, yes, it's in the last 2 minutes. Um, Dion Waiters has the highest efficient field goal percentage at 52.9%, which is higher than LeBron, Steph Curry, James Harden, Russell Westbrook, and Kevin Durant. So yeah, he's clutch, and he's been making big shots. He hit the game winner over the Warriors. He hit uh, the go-ahead field goal that basically sealed it over the Cavs the second game. He hit game winners against like the crappy Nets, and he's just hitting big shots this whole year. So they might have a deeper team as well because Hassan Whiteside and Goran Dragic are both. Goran Dragic is tapered off a little the older he got, but Whiteside is a borderline all star. He might have made it if his team was in the playoffs at that point in time. So yeah, Miami is probably a deeper team, and they're hotter right now. In the new year, they're like 19-5 or something like that. So yeah, they've been doing pretty well this year. They're probably deeper than Detroit. Detroit is the 7th seed. I just talked about them, and Chicago is the 8th seed in the East as of this moment. So Memphis is they're a grinded out team. I'll be honest, I don't really watch them that much. Depth wise, I know they rely on their starters a lot. I don't know how strong their bench is exactly, but Mike Conley probably is the best player that doesn't make the All Star team, which makes sense. I mean, there's a lot of amazing guards in the West, so you can't blame him. But he's a great player. Marc Gasol was an All Star, arguably over Rudy Gobert, but I won't get into that right now. But he actually isn't rebounding very well this year, but he's improved his shooting. Zach Randolph is great off the bench, so that's a great bench role for him. Um, so they're probably gonna lose in the first round still, but you never know because their size and their physicality, the way they play, can beat anyone. Okay, so I don't know how deep they are exactly. Bench wise, Vince Carter does give them some very good minutes off the bench, but for the most part, they aren't the strongest bench in the league. And then we have Chicago. Okay, they've been a mess this whole year. Rondo's been coming off the bench. He's actually been playing pretty decent as of late. They're really guard heavy. Obviously, they got Carter Williams, D Wade, Jimmy Butler, who now plays small forward, but he's basically a shooting guard. Could even play point guard a little. He's a pretty good passer. Um, but yeah, they are on a journey to have a team of only point guards. And that would be beautiful to see against a team of only centers over in Philadelphia. Okay, but Chicago, for the most part, probably is going to get swept in the first round, if not in 5 games. Um, if they're the 7th or the 8th seed. I mean, Boston, you can't really trust that much because they haven't proven themselves in the playoffs yet, but they look like a way better team right now than Chicago. Probably sweep. For the 6 seeds right now, in both conferences, we got Oklahoma City. They just rose up. They were the 7th seed for most of the year, actually, but now they're in the 6th seed. We all know they're not that deep. Russell Westbrook basically has to do everything for that team. Unfortunately, they are pretty good bigs wise though. They got Sabonis, who's decent. I mean, he's still a rookie, but he's a decent rebounder, decent player. Steven Adams, who's pretty good, not all star, but he's extremely physical, great rebounder. Um, he can score inside. Ennis Cantor, good rebounder, amazing scorer inside, sucks at defense, so he doesn't get a ton of minutes, and he just broke his arm as well, his hand, punching a chair, so he's still working on his way back. He is back now, but his the time that he took off probably cost him a few games. But so bigs wise, they're pretty decent, I guess. I'm not sure. They did make and they have Taj Gibson. They just made a trade for him. And Doug McDermott was supposed to be their shooter because they have like none. Robertson sucks at threes. Kyle Singler just sucks overall. Um, so Doug McDermott hasn't been the shooter they've been wanting. Taj Gibson is a quality big as well, but they are kind of heavy in that area. Um, so they're not that deep of a team. You never know with a superstar how many games they can take. If they do end up facing Golden State, it'll be an emotional series, but most likely it's over in 4 or 5 games. And if they face the Spurs, probably a sweep, unfortunately. But then again, you can never count out Russell Westbrook. And then you got the Pacers, who I honestly thought would be the second seed this year. If you look back at my bold predictions with Bryce earlier this year, or earlier last year, calendar year anyway. So the Pacers really didn't pan out. They got Jeff Teague, who's been great for them, but they didn't really get that much help for Paul George. I thought Big Al was going to be a big piece. He's just coming off the bench, not that great. Miles Turner is still evolving, only in his second year. You can't put too much pressure on him. But for the most part, I thought Paul George, for one, would be better. I mean, he was an all star, but I thought he was going to be in the 25-point per game range, doing everything for that team, getting them to a top 3 or 4 seed. But unfortunately, they're in the 6th seed. So, yeah. Um, and their bench isn't that solid. I mean, you got CJ Miles, who I think starts for them, and he's a pretty decent role player, but he's really streaky as well. And then Monte Ellis is really, every year he keeps tapering off, tapering off. Yeah, so he's not nearly the player he used to be in Golden State, and not even the player he used to be in Dallas. So he's not what they really were searching for either. For the 5th seeds in both conference, they could actually spell a little trouble in the first round, maybe second round. One, and they're both probably underachievers this year as well in terms of the talent they have. For one, you got the Clippers, who have ever since they choked to Houston a few years back. They've underachieved. I mean, they did beat San Antonio, but then they just completely choked to Houston. And ever since then, injuries have been destroying them. Um, your two best players get injured in the exact same game in the playoffs, and then you lose 4 in a row to Portland. So yeah, injuries have been derailing them, and that might be a reason they are the 5th seed. Talent-wise, they should be able to go toe-to-toe with anybody. Maybe it's the coaching. Okay, Doc Rivers is hailed as a great coach in today's game, but I'm starting to question that right now because they've never. He also works as like the president, so he like gets them players and everything too. And their best player off the bench is Austin Rivers and Jamal Crawford when he's hot. Okay, he's basically J.R. Smith 2.0 but older, and more Six Man of the Year awards, because he's extremely streaky as well. So, and they have a. I have a feeling they could spell trouble for Utah and perhaps whoever the 1 seed is in the second round because they better have urgency this year and not get injured because if they don't, CP3 might leave, Blake Griffin might leave, and JJ Redick might leave. I was pushing them to go for Carmelo, honestly, because they had decent cap space and they could have just thrown in some players like Austin Rivers and Jamal Crawford, but they didn't make a move. So yeah, and they're not deep. I mean, everyone knows they're not that great of a bench wise team. They never have been, except Austin Rivers is coming into his own. Like before, when he first got there, it's like this. He might have not even have been in the league unless he was on a terrible team like the Nets or something. But now he's actually a quality role player off the bench. And then we got the 5th seed Atlanta. They've been somewhat underachieving as well. Talent wise, they're not better than the top 4 seeds, so I can't really say that. But they started off extremely hot, died out a little, got hot again, and now they're dying out a little bit again. And so they're probably going to stay in that 5th seed. You never know, though. The Pacers might creep up on them. They're only about a game out, 2 games out. So you never know. But Dwight Howard isn't the player that I thought he would be. He is shooting a career high percentage, and he's still top 5 in rebounds in the league, but his scoring isn't there. Paul Millsap is still a beast. Um, and Dennis Schroeder, excuse me, is coming into his own, but they still miss the departure of Jeff Teague and the passing ability of an Al Horford, who was an All Star with them. So yeah, I don't know if they will spell any trouble because they're facing Toronto, and once Kyle Lowry gets back, they're a completely different team. But speaking of which, let's get to the 4 seeds. So the 4 seed in the West, we got Utah. Okay, top to bottom, they actually might be the deepest team in the league. Um, they were always searching for a point guard. They finally got that in George Hill. And then they also have quality role players on the bench that hardly even play, like Sheldon Mack. Dante Exum has been getting more minutes lately. Congrats to him. And then Raul Neto, I don't really like Raul Neto, but he can shoot it, and he's a decent facilitator off the bench. Okay, not amazing, but not awful. Gordon Hayward was an All-Star this year. You got Rodney Hood. Joe Johnson was a great pickup for them. I was surprised because he's old. Boris Diaw sucks. Okay, he looks overweight as well for an NBA player. He's still a decent passer, but that's basically all he can do out there on the floor, except maybe bring veteran leadership, I guess, on the bench. But Joe Johnson probably does that better anyway. And technically, right now, Gordon Hayward is a veteran as well and the best player on that team. But Gobert is great. I'm a little disappointed in Derek Favors because he was injured, so he's not quite the player he was. I thought he even might be borderline All Star, but that's not the case. But he is still a decent role player as well, so you can't really complain. They have a pretty strong bench, and Quinn Snyder is really great as well. So they might be. They're not top heavy, okay? They don't have superpowers at the top of their roster, and then a bunch of like decent role players. But everyone on that team is pretty decent. Gobert probably should have been an All Star, and then Gordon Hayward obviously is an All Star, and he continues to get better. So they might be the deepest team in the league. 4 seed in Toronto. They did make two significant moves. First, they went for Serge Ibaka, and then they got PJ Tucker. They got better defensively. Finally, got that shooting big they've been looking for, which kind of sucks for Valanciunas because he doesn't really have the biggest role in the world. But I'm not sure he really wanted that anyway. You never know. But DeMar DeRozan is coming to his own this year. Kyle Lowry is still probably their best player. Great on-ball defender for a guard. Um, he keeps killing the Jazz, which sucks. But he's injured right now, so it's going to be interesting when he comes back how good the chemistry will be and the flow will be. But they're still a pretty good player, even or a pretty good team even without him. So when your best player comes back, that just makes them all that much better. And they do have some pretty good role players. Damari Carroll is a pretty good defender. Um, I can't remember their backup point guard. Can't remember his name, but he's Corey Joseph. Corey Joseph is pretty good as well. Um, so yeah, the 4 seed Toronto was looking like a pretty good team. Third seeds in both conferences, we got Houston and we got Washington. Okay, both teams have probably overachieved this year. I thought Washington might not even make the playoffs when they started the season 2-8. Okay, excuse me. So when they started the season 2-8, except for Charles Barkley, no one really thought they were going to make any noise. But now Bradley Beal is finally healthy for once in his career. John Wall has solidified himself as a top 5 point guard in this league, probably. Um, he's just fantastic. And the team around him, Otto Porter stepped up. Kelly Oubre stepped up. Marcin Gortat has kind of died out a little bit, but he's still very serviceable as a big man. Okay, I thought they might look for a Lou Williams, but they didn't move for him. But Bogdanovich has been great for them off the bench so far, averaging almost 17 a game, better shooting percentage than when he was with the Nets, the terrible, terrible Nets, who are going to suck probably for the next 3 years until they finally get draft picks, and then another 3 or 4 years until those draft picks develop after that. So yeah, he finally got out of that situation, and he's been fantastic for Washington. And then Houston, they actually have a decent bench. They picked up Lou Williams, which I'm surprised they were able to get him. And they almost got Andrew Bogut, but then he broke his leg, so maybe he wouldn't have broke his leg if he went to Houston. But they gave up terrible Corey Brewer, who can't make a jump shot for his life and has really died out on defense later in his career. But they gave up Brewer and a draft pick for Lou Williams. So now they have probably the two best bench players in the league on the same team coming off the bench. Capella has really stepped up. Him and Harden in the pick and roll is ridiculous. Uh, and then Patrick Beverly, obviously a great defender. Ryan Anderson has really found his role, and he's a great shooter for them. I mean, he can be lights out. I call him kind of the older version of Klay Thompson. Klay Thompson is obviously better than him, but he's like a poorer man's version of Klay Thompson, shooting wise and size wise. And then James Harden has just really stepped up his game. He's probably going to win the MVP this year. He does have 6 turnovers a game, which but when you have to do basically everything point guard wise for his team, it makes sense and facilitating wise. So I'm not too worried about that. He's really stepped up his scoring and rebounding. And for the most significant thing is the assists are up by 4 this year, which is crazy. So he might win MVP. He's been fantastic. They're not the deepest team in the league, but their role players are very good. Okay, so they have the two best bench players, and Montrezl Harrell, who knew? He's actually a pretty good power forward, and he's young too, so they can keep him for a long time. Let's go to the second seeds. So for right now, Boston and San Antonio are both in the second spot, but by the end of the year, they both might snag the first seeds. Uh, it wouldn't be a surprise, okay? I don't know how Popovich gets his bench to play so well, but they go out and pick these random players like Deadman. Um, no one saw him coming, but he's actually a quality big off the bench. Pau Gasol can still score, not that great defensively, but in the defensive system, he's not terrible. Um, and then they got David Lee, who honestly people thought he might not even be in the league this year, but he's been fantastic for them as a role. And then Kawhi Leonard really stepped up this year. Okay, he's in the MVP conversation. Last year he was second in voting. I don't know how, but this year if he's top 4 in voting, I won't mind. Okay. If they snag the first seed, he might actually win it. Who knows? He's still not that great of a passer, but he stepped up his scoring a lot. He's shooting very well. He's still probably the best team defender and on-ball defender in the league, even though the stats don't really show that. Um, he's probably the smartest defender in the league as well. He's just fantastic for them. Okay. Um, so And then they got Patty Mills, who's obviously great as well, great shooter. Probably should be starting for them. Um, Deontay Murray, another draft pick that no one saw coming, but he's been fantastic for them. Manu Ginobili, still serviceable. Tony Parker, he's kind of, you never know what you're going to get with him at this point in his career, but he can still be that veteran presence for them. Championship resume. So yeah, you never know. They might be coming out of the West this year if the Golden State Warriors aren't healthy. And then you got Boston, who I'm surprised a little bit. I picked them to be the third seed, but the second seed, and they might actually be the first seed. Isaiah Thomas, second leading scorer in the NBA, which is kind of crazy based on his height and his athleticism. But he's been fantastic for them as a scorer. Probably the worst defender in the league, but they hide that very well with players like Crowder, Smart, and Avery Bradley, who are fantastic role players. Bradley has really stepped up his scoring this year, actually. And when he's healthy, the Celtics might be a problem. Maybe not a problem for Cleveland, let's be honest here. But for the rest of the East, they are probably the second best team, and not just record wise. Okay, Al Horford, he's not a very good rebounder this year. Considering his position, he's in a similar spot as Marc Gasol, but he still gets it done for them passing wise. He can score a little bit here and there, and he grabs like 6 rebounds a game. Um, so yeah, they didn't make a move, which might have been smarter because if they don't think they can beat Cleveland this year, why give up all your young assets? Jaylen Brown, another player that's been great for them, and they might get the #1 pick this year and go for Markelle Fultz, who under the tutelage as a backup to a player like Isaiah Thomas would be fantastic for him, and he might even be starting sometime next season, unless they do make a trade in the offseason finally. But yeah, and then let's go to the first seeds in both conference, which everyone is saying both teams are super teams, okay? So what is supposed to be a super team? You're supposed to be deep. Okay. They're both on paper pretty deep. I mean, everyone says the acquisition of Kevin Durant really cost them on defense, but not really, because when Kevin Durant's healthy and in the lineup, they're the #1 defensive and offensive team in the league uh, by basically every measure. But right now, they're not because Kevin Durant went down. So when he gets healthy, who knows? They're probably the best team in the league if he gets healthy because they just run over their opponents. Um, but it's going to be kind of hard to get acclimated, especially if after 4 weeks he still has to sit out a little bit and he returns like a week before the playoffs. But I'm not too worried about them, okay? Um, San Antonio might give them trouble, but if they're fully healthy, all clicking, I doubt it. Okay, and I would say is a super team because their 4 best players are all stars, all NBA players, and all 28 or younger. Okay, Sean Livingston is still a beast off the bench. And Andre Iguodala has actually been. He sucked earlier this year. Okay, like by most measures, he was the worst six-man in the league. But when he wants to be, he can rattle off 24, 25 points. Okay, Harrison Barnes actually is a lot better than people expected. Um, but obviously not as good as Kevin Durant. So yes, they made the right decision. Yes, they'll probably make the finals this year, and if not, the very least, the conference finals. And they are extremely top heavy, obviously, but they have a pretty decent bench as well. JaVale McGee can somewhat play. Zaza is a pretty decent center if he doesn't have to do too much for you. He's a big body. He can rebound a little bit. He can score inside. Um, David West, he's old now, but he can do some decent stuff off the bench. And then you got Patrick McCaw, who they're like the Spurs 2.0 in drafting wise, picking up young guys because no one really saw Patrick McCaw coming, but he plays some vital minutes for them sometimes down the stretch, and he's pretty good. Okay, and they kept him on the team. They gave up players like Verjao and stuff. And then they just picked up Barnes, who I think is a great pickup as a backup. Okay, as a starter, he doesn't really fit that mold that Golden State goes for. But as a backup to Kevin Durant, he brings toughness. Great, he can shoot the ball. He's a decent defender. I mean, he's been on 9 teams in his career, and 3 of them twice. But it looks like he could make a difference in the playoffs on the bench, okay? And then we got Cleveland, okay? Everyone's saying they might have the best roster top to bottom right now. But here's my argument to that, okay? One, LeBron literally sits 9 minutes and they get outscored by 22 points in those 9 minutes. The past 2 games, both games, he sat out 18 minutes combined, outscored by 44, and they've lost both games. Um, albeit J.R. Smith just came back, so he needs to get acclimated more. Kevin Love, when he gets back, he'll be need to be acclimated better into the system as well, which is going to take time. So yes, they might drop off of that first seed, but they're still clearly probably the best team in the East, especially with LeBron. And Kyrie's having a good year, having a career year. Um, he probably will play amazing in the playoffs as well because he's probably the clutchest player in the league. But their bench was supposed to be arguably the best bench in the league. But here's why I say no. Okay, their bench is old. Okay, Channing Frye can't play very good defense. Not a good rebounder, but he's a 7 footer who can shoot, so he can stretch out the D. But not very good on the other end of the floor. Okay, Richard Jefferson. Let's stop with Jefferson is a good defender because he's not. He gets beat a lot. Maybe it's just because he's old and he can't stay in front of his guy. It looks like he messes up on rotations all the time as well. Um, and he can't really score that great either. But locker room presence wise, he gets a ton of minutes. I don't know why, but presence wise, I guess he's decent for them. Andrew Bogut broke his leg in the first 58 seconds, so whoever they get up as a backup center, I don't know, probably Larry Sanders. I'm guessing if he even wants to go, because they basically said we're picking Bogut over you. So I don't know if he'll be like, okay, well I'll go with you guys, because Boston might be knocking on that door as well for Sanders. So who knows? But their starters are still pretty quality. Oh yeah, and Darren Williams. I don't want to go too hard on him because we saw Kyle Korver was not very good his first few games, but now he's shooting like 50% from three. So Darren Williams, I'm going to give him time, okay? But so far he has not been that great off the bench, and he just keeps making poor. Like he missed a game winner. I don't have a problem with that, but it's late in games when he's tossing up turnovers that bug me, okay? So, but I'm not going to go too hard on him because he's only been there for like 6 games. You never know how great he could be in 5 weeks when the playoffs comes. I think he can still play a little bit. And then Tristan Thompson still gets it done. He really struggles at the three though, at the free throw line. Sorry, along with LeBron. LeBron, you never know what you're gonna get from him defensively in the regular season because literally every time I watch a Cavs game, he doesn't even jump most of the time to contest shots. He just runs at them and stands and hope that makes a difference. But it's like people aren't scared when you're not going to jump and contest their jumper, okay? And sometimes he just leaves his man totally uh, and lets them get wide open shots. And then he complains at someone like Richard Jefferson or something and be like, why didn't you rotate? When he was just standing basically with no one even around him. So yeah, but you never know because in the playoffs when he actually tries defensively, he's probably the second best wing defender in the league next to Kawhi Leonard when he wants to be. Um, and Avery Bradley and stuff. So yeah, you never know. Kyrie career year offensively, and he's actually pretty good passer this year as well, career high in passing. Um, he's not that great defensively either. But J.R. Smith is back, so hopefully he can be their really tight on-ball defender at the guard position that they need. Iman Shumpert needs to step up his game defensively, but he is shooting pretty well from the floor this year, pretty good offensively for them. But yeah, so that's all the teams. I know this was an extremely long video, so if you're still here, thank you. Um, but yeah, who do you guys think is the deepest team in the league, top to bottom? I personally probably think the Jazz, and they don't have the superstar talent at the top, but 1 through 12 or 1 through um, 10, I don't know how many players are going to play in the playoffs, but they could give people trouble. And they have quality talent 1 through 10, okay? Um, but who do you guys think are the super teams? I don't really consider Cleveland a super team personally, but if you do, leave that in the comment section. And I'll see you guys next time.